Welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where today we are going to be talking about preparedness. And I'll tell you how this all came about. Right now we are running a water bath canning class, and it is open enrollment. You can enroll anytime. You can take as long as you want to complete the course. The link is below this video if you are interested. And then I have been hearing from people in the class, and there is a particular topic of message that has just struck me recently. We've had several people who say something like, I'm 57 years old and I've been canning all my life. And this course was such a great refresher for me. I had forgotten a lot of the safety things about water bath canning, so this was really a good review. And as I read several with that same message topic, I began to think about that just a little bit. And I agree with these people. I think that refreshing our knowledge base from time to time is really a good and healthy thing to keep us sharp and on top of our food storage and how we are preparing food. Food safety is so important. It is part of our self-reliance and our emergency preparedness in order to make sure that we have the proper food security. So we're going to start this little series. Jim and I talked about it quite a bit last night, and every once in a while we're going to have what we call a preparedness topic. Now, these topics are going to be something that probably we have all taken for granted, that we think that we know, that we think that we remember, and yet going back through some good solid scientific material might help all of us to just sharpen up our game just a little bit. I've been doing quite a bit of research on food storage, and I have for the past 2 years, but I've been focusing on things that we just can normally do that will help ensure better food security. So today we're going to talk about issues related to storing food in our pantry. Now for us, our pantry plays a critical role in our overall food storage program and how we use foods. Our food storage area is out in our garage, as most of you know. We've talked about it often and how it's the only place we have. And it's not ideal, but it's what we have, and so we work with it. I don't traipse out there all the time when I need to use some food for an ingredient in a recipe, because what I do is I keep our main staples from our food storage, things that I use very frequently. I keep a small volume of them right here in our pantry or refrigerator or freezer or cupboard. And so the in-house storage, which I'm calling pantry storage, is really important. Otherwise I'd be going out there several times a day to get a cup of flour or whatever I might need. And so it's really important for us to think about what goes in our pantry and how we can preserve it so that we have the greatest possible food security. So one of the first things that was in one of the articles that I was reading in preparation for this video is the principle of first in, first out. And what that means is that we date things and then we use the oldest first. It was first in the cupboard, so it needs to come out first, which means that in rotating things, we put the new things in the back, just like they do in the grocery store. So you know that if you want a fresh gallon of milk, you don't pick the one up front, you go to the back and take the one in the very back because it's the most fresh. And so we kind of do that same thing with our food, which is really important. Now, another thing that is important to know is how food spoils. Fresh food, fruits and vegetables, have enzymes, and those enzymes can cause food spoilage because they keep working even after the fruit or the vegetable is removed from the parent plant. And it keeps ripening and ripening and ripening. If you've ever had spoiled bananas on your countertop because they didn't get eaten soon enough, that's enzymatic action. And so when we are dealing with foods, we need to understand that heat disables those enzymes. And so blanching food before we put it in our freeze dryer or our dehydrator, or even before we can it sometimes, is really an important thing. Also, bacteria, yeast, and mold can cause they are foodborne pathogens and can cause foodborne illness. So we need to prevent against those things. Air and light, sunlight, are also enemies to food. Our pantry is in a closet right here. Actually, it's a small closet. I wish it were about 5 times larger than it actually is. But it's what this house came with, and there's nothing I can do about it, and so we make do with what we have. But it's dark in there, and that's good because we don't want sunlight hitting food, because sunlight is an enemy. Air is an enemy. Air meaning oxygen, because of the oxidation that occurs between oxygen as it interacts with some foods. Safe pantry storage is another quick topic, and that involves a couple of things. First of all, according to this article that I just read, original packaging is the safest bet. But once you open it, then you're going to want to do something different. You are going to generally, for dry foods, want to put it in an airtight package, and then you keep it in the dark. And also, we need to watch out for bug and rodent infestation. And it is also important that we consume food in a reasonable amount of time. Do you ever have leftovers that you've put in your refrigerator that you find 3 months later and open the lid and they can almost walk off by themselves? Well, I have. If you haven't, you've missed an experience. And so we need to, again, first in, first out, rotate those things and eat them. Leftovers should be eaten within 3 or 4 days. Listeria, which I've talked about in a couple of videos that we've done on water bath canning, is one of the organisms that can cause foodborne illness. And the sneaky thing about Listeria is that it can grow and multiply even at refrigerator temperatures. And so we don't want to give it time enough to do that. So eat leftovers or keep foods in your refrigerator not more than 3 or 4 days. I'm not talking about fresh produce that you've washed and put in your refrigerator, but these are mostly prepared dishes. So consume foods in a reasonable amount of time. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about, and we're going to do actually a little activity, is cleanliness. Now, we all know this. We know that cleanliness has directly to do with the food safety. We need to keep things clean. We need to keep our countertops clean, which is one reason why I keep this bottle of Stearamine, a spray bottle of Stearamine, right here by my cabinet, by my countertop all the time. I'm spraying this countertop several times a day with Stearamine. Our hands need to be clean. Our refrigerator needs to be clean. Our food storage dishes need to be clean. Our freezer, our refrigerator needs to be clean. It's a good idea, if we can, to wipe up messes and clean things with paper towels that we can then just discard. Well, I don't know about you, but that's quite an expense. And so I use dishcloths, various types of dishcloths. And these are fine so long as they are washed often, very often. And kitchen sponges, those are not recommended because they harbor E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, all kinds of things, molds, mildews, and bacteria. So get rid of that kitchen sponge. If you're really attached to your kitchen sponge, wash it with hot soapy water and leave it really, really wet, and then put it in your microwave and steam that sponge, completely steam it and sterilize it. And you should do that every couple of days. So I thought today what we would do is open my pantry and take a look. About a year ago, it was October of last year, which is, we're almost at September, so it's just been almost a year when I completely reorganized my pantry, cleaned everything out and got it all organized. Now, generally, I don't clean my pantry until I can't stand it another minute, and sometimes that's 2 years, 3 years. I try to keep things fairly organized as I put things in and out. It's not been quite a year, so we're going to go over to the pantry, open it up, and we're going to do a little analysis. I really thought about doing some pre-cleaning, but I thought, no, if this is a fair test, I have to be very transparent about what is there. So I'm not sure what we're going to find. But we are going to be looking for evidence of bugs and rodent and do a little bit of prevention. We live right on the edge of acres of BLM land, on the edge of the wilderness. And so yes, we have had trouble with mice in the house, what, Jim, 2 or 3 times in the 11 years that we've lived here. And we just trap them and then we don't see them for months and months. But in any case, we're gonna go check out the pantry. So let's move over there and see what we see. So here it is in all of its glory. And it used to be so nicely organized. So I'm just gonna start on the top row and just give you a quick rundown. So I do have some things in unopened original packaging up on that top shelf. On the next shelf, I have some things that have been opened but closed up in their original packaging, plus things like corn and rice, some nuts in these keepers that I got and organized. This shelf has canning lids, baking powder, which is out of place, an open box of thin spaghetti, some of these keepers, and just some other stuff tucked in, an open box of Bisquick. This is where I keep all of my stuff that I bring in from mostly our freeze-dried and dehydrated stock out in our food storage. This, for instance, is celery, and so I'm using it in the house, and so it's here and it is not vacuum sealed. Here is some barley, here is some lentils. These are craisins, and then over here I have black beans and cannellini beans. This row I'm going to take completely out and put it back over on the counter, and we're going to go through it one at a time. And then down below I have jars and cans of things, and things are just double stacked. Here's an open sack of masa for making tortillas and tamales. Here is a closed up package of corn tortillas, and then we have our sugar and rice and flour for refilling some of these things from our food storage. And these I do not re-vacuum seal once they're here. So I'll meet you back over at the cabinet and I'll have everything from this row and we'll kind of analyze it. So before we go over and inspect the items that I pulled off this shelf, let's just take a good hard look at the shelf. So what I'm looking for is evidence of insects or rodents. So Jim, if you can come in and get a really close up. There are some crumbs over there. I don't see any wiggling or moving. So if Jim is close enough, that's as close as he gets without it going out of focus. You can see that there are some crumbs there and 3 or 4 kernels of wheat, but really pretty much it is fairly clean. Now I'm armed with how I'm going to take care of that. I have a clean cloth right out of the drawer, and I have my stearamine. Now stearamine is not an insecticide. It kills microbes. It is going to make sure that we have no viruses or bacteria there. So I'm just going to wipe this down real quick. And you can see everything here that I got. And then I'm just going to spray with the stearamine. And we're just going to let that dry while we go talk about the other things. Here is a collection of things that I took off that one shelf. This is a lot of food for one shelf, but it was all there. Over on this side I have salt. Salt I don't worry about. Bugs don't get it. It's just fine, so it's going to stay. Then I have powdered milk and I have grains. I have 2 types of wheat and rye. Then I have beans, I have powdered sugar and brown sugar, and these are all in these food saver containers. Now what I am noticing in this light is that, and I pull these out all the time, take what I need, put them back, so they're going in and out of the cabinet. And what I have not paid much attention to before is that the tops of these are dusty with whatever the food is that's inside. So this one has a little bit of brown sugar on the top. You know, that had a few things on it as well. So these are all okay. They are airtight and they are stored in the dark, and the house is pretty cool all the time. My kitchen stays right at about 70 degrees, so these are all just fine. But let's look at the loose things that I had. So here is an unopened package of stuffing from last Thanksgiving, almost a year ago. It says sell by 12 03 of 22. So this is still good. I may be able to use it again for this Thanksgiving. It is in its original container. There are no splits or breaks in the packaging, so this is okay. I just need to find a good place for it. This is my Italian oregano, and I do think that a lot of the crumbs that we found on that shelf were from this package. I need to repackage this, so I am going to do that. Here is an unopened package of brown sugar, and it is again in its original packaging, but look, I have a brown sugar container right here. Looks to me like there's room for this, so I can just put it right down in there, and that takes care of that one. Here is a bag of marshmallows. It was open. They are dry. This is going in the trash. This is some sliced almonds, and they are in a baggie. So the original package was opened and they were put in this airtight baggie, so these are still okay. I have one of these that is for different types of nuts, and I'm going to add this to that. Here is an unopened package of pecans. Jim brings me these pecans all the time, and I love it. And so this is unopened, best used before January of 23, so we have a long time on this, even just in the original packaging. Now, and I may just store this right on the top like that. I have two different containers of calcium hydroxide, which I use for nixtamalization of corn. I don't have a good way to store those, so I'm going to have to come up with something. They're opened. I mean, they're sealed. They have been opened and used. Not this one, it's in the original packaging. But I need to find something else that I can do with it. Last is this package of red peppers that I used to make tamales this past week. These are still good. The original package is open, so I put them in this baggie. I just have to find a location for them here. So that's kind of a rundown on my pantry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this process with every shelf, and I will bring you back when I'm all done so we can see my nice clean pantry. So I'll see you in a little while. So this was really a good review for me. I learned some things today. This only took me 45 minutes to do, and generally when I clean out my pantry, it takes 2 hours or 3 hours because it's in such a mess. So doing it more often and making sure everything is clean makes all the difference in the world. The debris that we found on this shelf is about equal what we found on all the shelves. There was no evidence of any insect or rodent droppings or damage of any kind. Now, one of the things that I did was I put some of the opened things like the Bisquick inside a Ziploc bag. I did that to several things. I put two smaller bags of rice that I had previously opened in this same container with the long grain rice because there was plenty of room. And the the open box of pasta is now in a plastic bag right behind the pasta keeper that I have right there. So I found it very easy to reorganize and to clean. So this was really a good lesson for me. Next on my list, if I'm going to carry on with this cleanliness piece, is to do my refrigerator and my spices. My spice cupboard, I pull flour and sugar out of there and spices and baking powder all the time, and I need to do that one more often because it does get flour dust and spilled sugar and sometimes spices there too. So this is a good preparedness reminder for all of us to be sure that because our pantries are so important in the whole scheme of our food storage, that we need to be sure that we pay attention to mitigating any possibility of infestation of any kind, and making sure that everything is clean and kept clean and the crumbs are all kept up too, so that we're not offering free food for any critters. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and we will see you at our next video. Thanks so much for being with us.